Hello and welcome back. This is Candace from Candoodle, and today I'm doing my second guest design video for Miss Ink Stamps, and I'm going to be making this interactive fun fold stenciled card. So let's get started. For this card, I am going to be using the Miss Ink Stamps Rainbow Stencil, the Random Dot Stencil, as well as the Sunshine and Rainbow Stamp. I'm also going to be using the Fawn Puffy Cloud Borders die and the Small Stitched Rectangles die, as well as some Pinkfresh Studio inks. So I'm going to start by showing you this kind of ugly template I made to show you where we're headed, and it's going to be this fun fold card, but it's really just made from an A2 card base that has a couple of funny scores and cuts into it. So essentially we're going to be cutting half of a rectangle in the center of this and then scoring towards the edges, and that rectangle is going to be just big enough that it's in the center and it's going to perfectly fit one of the rainbows from that rainbow stencil. And so when it opens, we're going to be able to have the rainbow flip and be colored. So that is where we're headed, but I'm going to walk you through it step by step. So I'm taking an 8.5 by 5.5 piece of paper and scoring in the middle at 4.25. This is how I make my regular A2 size card bases. Once that's done, I'm going to open the card base and I'm going to put it into my trimmer until the left side reaches 4 3/8. Then I'm going to take the cutter and I'm going to cut from 1 1/8 down to 2 1/8. I'm going to move my paper over into the trimmer a little bit further until it reaches the 1 1/8 mark, and then I'm going to come in with the cutter again and cut from 1 1/8 to 2 1/8. So now we have those two little cuts in there. So I've turned my paper around and we're going to make a cut that's going to connect those two cuts together. So it's going to go from about 1 1/8 to 4 3/8. And then once that's done, I'm going to get my scoreboard out and we're going to score from where those cuts are down towards the edge of the card base and fold that back. And I'm going to go ahead and burnish all of the edges with my bone folder, and then there we have it. I used the dimensions that I knew a rainbow would fit perfectly on that rectangle, but you could do this with any sort of size card that you wanted to have to highlight your image. So before we move on to the stenciling, I am going to washi tape this down to my work surface just so it's a bit easier and not going to move around on me. And then I'm going to come in with that rainbow stencil and put it right in the center. So it's going to be right on that rectangle that flips around. And I'm going to ink blend a rainbow in some shades of gray because I want it to look sad and kind of colorless. So for the first stencil, I used the lightest and second darkest colors, which are Misty Coast and Metropolis. And then when I came in with the next stencil, it's super easy to line up because it has those little etched lines that you can line up with the places you've already inked. And then I'm going to come in with the second lightest and the darkest colors, which are Rocky Slope and Licorice. And I'm just kind of doing lazy man's masking here and using that pink piece of paper to kind of cover the places that I don't want my ink to go. You could definitely mask this off properly, but I thought that was easiest. So then I'm going to peel that off, and there we have our rainbow, which is going to be at the front of the card. So now I am taping that back down to my desk so I can see the back side, and this is in exactly the same spot, but it's on the inside of the card. So this is what is going to show when the recipient opens the card. And this time I am using proper rainbow colors that are nice and bright and happy. So the green is Grassy Knoll, and then I'm going to come in with the pink in a second, which is Bubblegum. The yellow I'm using is Sunshine, and the blue is Summer Shower. As you can see, I am being a little bit more careful with my masking and trying not to blend my ink into the kind of other sections of the rainbow. Last time it wasn't as important because all of them were shades of gray that could blend into each other, but I was really careful this time because we are using such different colors. I didn't want them to accidentally go into the wrong place on the rainbow. Again, you can mask these properly, but I did it just fine with some paper. So when I pull that stencil up, you can see we have a perfect rainbow, and it flips from being colorless to colorful, which I think is super, super fun. I decided this looked a little bit naked, so I wanted to add some more stenciling to it. So I cut out a piece of cardstock that was just big enough to cover that rainbow, and I put just some scrap paper inside the actual card to protect it, and I just blended the outside frame area. Now I'm very carefully lining up that stencil and then opening the card but keeping it in the same place. This is going to make sure that those little bubbles align well when the card is closed between the top and the bottom, but it's also going to allow me to blend the full inside of the card, which I think adds some really nice consistency. As you can see at the top there, I did use some old masking paper to mask that off so I didn't get any ink where I didn't want it. Peeling that off, and you can see how well those little dots lined up between the two frames just by doing that little stenciling trick. Off camera, I did use a stitched rectangle die to cut a rectangle that's a little bit smaller than the centerpiece where our rainbow is, and I'm going to nest it behind so you won't be able to see this when the card is closed, but it'll be revealed when the card is open. I'm just blending a quick rainbow using the same colors that I used on the rainbow onto this to add some color and depth to it. Once I'm happy, I'm going to put it in my Misty and stamp a sentiment from the Sunshine and Rainbow stamp set. I'm actually going to use the one that says "You Color My World," which it was what inspired this whole card to begin with. And so I'm stamping that down in some black ink, and then I'm going to put some adhesive behind it. So to ensure that this lines up in the right spot, I'm going to flip it over and nest it right behind where I want it to be when the card is closed. Then I'm going to flip the top up and it's going to grab onto that adhesive and I can press it down and now it's placed perfectly. And that way you can't see it when the card is closed, but it is there when the card is open. To finish it off, I did add this piece of shimmer cardstock. I cut it with a cloud border and then I added some glue behind it, and it's going to perfectly cover the bottom of the rainbow and make it look like it's coming out of the clouds. And so there we have the final card. I hope you enjoyed this interactive fun fold technique and it gives you an idea for how to use your stencils in a maybe a bit unconventional way. I think this is super fun and you'll have to let me know how you feel about it down below in the comments. As always, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate the time you spend here with me. You can always find me over on Instagram at Candoodle Creations, and until then, I will see you in my next video. Bye!